quorum, everybody is present tonight. So, please stand and join me in prayer. Bow your heads with me, please. Dear Lord, thank you for this day and all the blessings that you give to us. Thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight. I pray that you be with us, guide and lead us as we make decisions on behalf of the district and let them be wise ones. I pray that you bless the school district this year. Just let it be fruitful and let the children be as successful as we hope that they will be. I thank you for your love, your grace, and your mercy. And I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Do you have any public comments? Mr. Deathridge, come on up here and let me read this statement to you before you start, okay? The board will hear comments from the audience only during the public comment portion of the meeting. The public comment portion of the meeting will be no more than 30 minutes total. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to address the board. Please respect the privacy of others and refrain from identifying students, employees, or other community members by name. Disruption of the meeting will not be tolerated at any time. Ms. Wilkerson will give you time.
Before we proceed, I have a question. I have direct letters here from the Floresville ISD campus and its staff. So in order for me to read these letters,
Yes, thank you.
really,
Go ahead.
that's pretty rude of you. This is a letter from associate or a person of Floresville High School. As you know, Floresville Independent School District hosted a new student registration for all new students in all grades 6 through 19 in the Floresville Middle School cafeteria. During the registration process, you attempted to register your children but refused to enter any information online pertaining to you or your children while at the PIM station. In accordance to the immunizations, in addition, at the immunization station, you refused to fill out the immunization form that our district nurse handed you. Lastly, you failed to complete the free and reduced lunch application. You informed Ms. Akers that we denied your children the right to the Churro of public school. We followed our district guidelines and did not deny services to your children. Our new student registration process is the same for each student. We can go on with this letter, but let me have your response to you real quick because that kind of summarizes everything that's going on at this campus. In response to the letter that you wrote on 8/13 in regards to new student registration for Dustin Deathridge, my son, which I have the right to say, I believe your letter is to be inaccurate and in some cases false altogether. First of all, you met with myself, the special needs coordinator concerning my son's Joshua Deathridge approximately 1 week before the enrollment day you offered at the middle school to discuss complicated enrollment that was about to take place, as one child was over 18 and the other one being homeschooled, both having disabilities. You gave me information on state statutes for guardianship and art committee services. Then you called me a few days later to confirm an invitation to meet with you and the director of technology, James Urbowski, for at the time, whom at the time was on speakerphone during this conversation at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, August 6th at the Floresville Middle School campus for a private enrollment process. At last, this private enrollment process did not take place. In your retelling of events on August 6, 2019, you start out by saying during the registration process you attempted to register your children but refused to enter any information pertaining to you or your children while at the PIM station. This isn't entirely true. I did fill in and start a profile with your third-party website for the enrollment process. Only after being asked to open my email and verify my identity after just allowing the FISD school enrollment staff to make a copy of my driver's license. I did refuse to continue with this FISD enrollment process. You neglected to state in your letter that I asked for a written copy of the enrollment forms. You also neglected to add the fact that I also stated there was no privacy information being given to any parents about your third-party website you had parents going to, and my concerns of the FISD computers storing and warehousing private information such as passwords of the parents' email accounts. There was no parents, there was no information located on, near, or around the PIM station that spoke about the privacy of parents, nor the personal private information gathered and maintained at the PIM stations. With multiple computers being on the same table and no barrier for privacy, or there was a lack of security measures being taken to secure an individual's identity and privacy. This appears to be an infringement on individuals by not following the guidelines mandated by the state and the government as to the taking and collection of personal and private information, as well as the storage thereof. I ask you directly for a written copy or a physical paper copy of the enrollment forms in which you stated you had none and there were none available because of the electronic enrollment process. You also stated I had to enroll my children on your third-party system. I asked for the laws mandating me to enroll my children online and in which no longer allowed me to do a paper enrollment. And according to the state of Texas, the statutes of government, an agent must provide any public information to a person asking for the information during a business hours. If there is such a law requiring an electronic enrollment process, why not keep it posted when they cited the PIMS? Seeing how FISD scheduled that day to be open to the public at that time, weeks in advance, FISD made those times an official business hour. But the fact that the availability of the papers were not being supplied in case of a computer or internet failure makes the FISD enrollment staff look unprepared and inadequately trained if failure had occurred. And if either system would have failed, what would you have told the people? You might have to be waiting in line who might have been waiting in line for hours. To do what? Go home and come back? You continue by saying in addition to the immunization station, or in addition at the immunization station, you refused to fill out the immunization form that our district nurse handed you. At that point, I pointed out to you again that one of my son's immunizations, or lack thereof, was a medical necessity. And I would not be talking about that private information in a public setting for privacy reasons. I continued by stating that I would be more than happy to discuss this medical issue at the ARB meeting and to get the relevant information back to you within the allotted time of 30 working days from the request at the first ARB meeting in accordance to the limitations of law. I inquired once again to Joshua's previous enrollment papers, or the lack thereof, and why I was not given that exact same form 4 years ago.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yeah, I know you don't want to hear the truth. You don't ever want to hear the truth. That's okay, because the state's going to find out for you. Falsifying graduation papers.
Okay. Item number 3, the consent agenda. No more public comments. Item number 3, consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented by administration.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Ms. Pena and seconded by Mr. Pipper. All those in favor? Sounds right. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Galloway, assessment for 2018-19.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, School Board Trustees, Madam President, Dr. Bays. I'll be presenting to you the assessment report from this past school year. Even though I'm presenting the report now that I'm in charge of assessments, I do have to give credit to Ms. Akers, who put this together with all the data prior to handing it over to me, so she gets all the credit for that. She did a great job. First, I need to talk about credit by exam. If you recall from last year, some of the changes were that we need to provide a procedure for providing credit by exam. Well, part of that state recommendation was that we provided the board a report of what that looked like. So this past year, we used Texas Tech as our primary method of providing credit by exam when requested by students. Now, that credit by exam is if they want to accelerate to the next grade level. We did have 2 credit by exam tests given in 2018. They were both from first grade students. Neither one of them met the minimum score. Now, part of that requirement state is that we give you an average of those scores. So this is the average of the scores. Language arts was 84, math was 66, science was 61, and social studies was 62.5. To move on to the next grade level, they need to get a minimum of 70, so in each category. So they didn't meet that to accelerate to the next level. We do have our literacy program for our elementary. Right now we're using Start Renaissance. We started this last year. It's kind of a work in progress, so we're working through the students getting used to it, the teachers getting used to how to facilitate that. But we did see last year some of the highlights in kindergarten and second grade. We did see an increase from the beginning of the year when they took the first baseline assessment to the end of the year exam that they took. For our reading scores, we also saw some highlights in our meets and masters categories, especially in the 5th grade level and 8th grade level. We did see an increase in those areas, which is showing that our students are making progress to that next level, which is where we want to get for that benchmark. We did have a slight decrease in some of our overall passers, but that was across the state. So our district math, we did also see, especially in our meets and masters area, we did see some increases in grade 3, 5, 6, and Algebra 1 at the high school for masters. Now, we did see a slight decrease in some of those areas as well for math, but overall, as you'll see later on, we did increase above what the state level was in many of those categories. For our other subjects, we did see our biology and our U.S. history did have an increase, so we were excited about that. And with our advanced placement, there was an increase in the number of test takers, which was up from 325 to 354 that took the AP level exam. But as we talked about at the middle of last year about the change from focus on AP to dual credit, we did only see 14% of those students who actually received college credit that took the test. So that was a low number. Typically it's around 12 to 14% historically for our district, which is why we moved to the dual credit. Students can still take the AP test, and our honors courses will be at that level. That option is still available, but the dual credit does seem to be the best option for our students. For our high school EOC scores, we did see an increase in our English 1, remained the same, 63% passing, slight decrease in English 2. Algebra 1 saw a decrease to 74%, but biology again was up, as well as U.S. history. Some of the highlights, we did see some of the celebrations. Again, all students were equal to or above the state in 3 to 5 areas. So even though we did see a decrease in some areas, we were above the state or right at state level, so that's a positive piece. We did have our LEP students had an increase in 4 out of the 5 tests, which was really important because we put a lot of effort into increasing our support to our EL students. As well as our SPED students remain the same, or they increase in 3 out of the 5 tests. Some of the opportunities for growth is Algebra 1, of course, we saw a 7% decrease, and also our SPED and LEP scores. Even though we saw an increase, they're still way below where we want them to be at, so we're focusing on providing additional supports, which we started this when we came back for the professional development, providing some resources for those teachers. Here's some of our middle school scores. We did see at the, for 6th grade reading, we did see a slight decrease. Math, there was 6th grade math, there was an increase by 1 point. We did see a slight decrease in 7th grade reading and in 7th grade math, but we did see our reading scores for 8th grade remain the same, but math was a slight decrease. And we did see a slight decrease in science, and social studies was a slight decrease at 76%, but I will say that typically the average score is about 56% for the state, so that's still a huge win for us in the social studies for 8th grade. Some of the highlights we saw were that all the students above the state in 8 out of the 9 tests. So even though we did see a slight decrease, we were still above the state. 8th grade reading maintained scores, which was 7 points above the state. So even though we maintained, we were still 7 points above the state. And 7th grade math scores outperformed the state in all 7 categories. So we did excellent in that category. Our SPED students outperformed the state and grew from last year in 6 out of the 7 tests. So some of those interventions, we're starting to see an increase in that piece. Opportunities for growth is definitely in 7th grade writing and our overall LEP scores at the middle school level. South Elementary, we had our scores here. The 3rd grade reading, we saw a decrease to 59%, and we had our reading, 4th grade, we had an increase of 1 percentage point. 4th grade math, we did see a slight decrease as well to 56%, and writing was 49%. And 5th grade science was at 75%, but we did see some highlights, which was our 5th grade science. It was above the state as far as the scores go. 4th grade reading improved from the previous year, so that was important. Even though we were lower, we did have an improvement. Scores above the state, averaged in 3 test areas for special education. So we saw an increase there. So those supports that we're providing in special education seem to be working. And stronger gains in 5th grade math. And then our opportunities for growth is 3rd grade reading and 4th grade math and 4th grade writing. Our LEP is always going to be something we're working on as we implement those strategies. For North, some of the highlights, we have 5 tested areas scored above the state average. 4th grade reading improved from the previous year. Our LEP scores significantly above the state average in 4th grade math, 5th grade math, and 5th grade science. And our SPED scores significantly above the state average in 5th grade math. Opportunities for growth, again, are 3rd grade and 4th grade reading and 4th grade writing, but we did implement, we had the teachers at North and South come together, organized the Miss Guetta. We brought in a specialist and we worked on writer's workshop, and something we're going to continue on to improve there. And I will say that what I think one of the positive things out of that piece was is we saw North and South teachers planning together, which is going to bring us some district alignment, which is going to help, I think, improve scores in the long run. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Akers. Good job. Okay, Dr. Wade, the accountability report for 2018 to 19.
Can you guys see if I stand here? Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Bays, and Board. Our accountability results for the state of Texas were released on August the 14th and made available to the public on August 15th. Tonight I will be sharing the results for Floresville ISD in the accountability system and each campus. So just to give you a little bit of background information, House Bill 22 was passed in May of 2017, which launched this new accountability system, which we are now in the 2nd year of. This system is an attempt to merge both the state and the federal accountability systems into one. In August of last year, the districts received their A to F rating, and campuses received a rating of either met standard or improvement required. This year, both campuses and districts received an A to F rating. TA released this lovely document that tries to explain, well, does explain, the new accountability system. It outlines the new system and stating there are now 3 domains, which is the 2nd year we've had this, in student achievement, school progress, and closing the gaps. And I'll explain each of those domains in just a little bit, but I've included the whole sheet there for you if you'd like to read that. For those of you who like graphics like me, Sherry Hendrick from our Region 20 Education Service Center tried to put that information into a graphic form, which I think is a whole lot easier to read. And you can note STAR comes for student achievement, it counts over here for relative performance, it counts for academic achievement in domain 3, and for the elementary and middle school. So there's another piece that may be a little easier to grasp. I do want to state that the closing the gaps domain is where we get 100% of our federal accountability. For our state accountability, they take all 3 domains and calculate an average, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. So there are 3 domains, and they are it is calculated, our score is calculated by taking 70% of the better of student achievement or school progress domain. So you got 2, they're going to take the better of that, calculate 70% of that, and there's 30% for the closing the gaps domain. So that's how we get our score. For elementary and middle schools, the student achievement domain is based solely on STAR performance. And it is an average of 3 levels of performance by students. The meets, which is meeting the standard, mastering, or approaching, which is pretty much we've got it, we might need a little bit of help next year. So those 3 percentages are averaged together to give us this score. For each grade and subject, however, there is a different passing score depending on the grading subject. So for example, for master's level for grade 5 reading, this target score is 87%. For masters for grade 5 math, it's 83%. And for grade 5 science, it goes all the way up to 89%. So each subject and each grade level has a different passing score, if you will. For high schools and the district, the student achievement domain is weighted with the 3 scores, STAR results at 40%, and then they also have CCMR, what we call College Career Military Readiness Indicator, which is 40%, and then graduation counts 20%. So our elementaries, middle schools are rated one way, and the high school and the districts are rated a different way. So here is the updated list of that CCMR, College Career Military Readiness, that has changed for the 3rd time. We're getting another change next year, but it's all good. I will caution you the graduation and CCMR rates is a year lagging indicator. So this is not our 2019 graduate information. This is our 2018 graduate information. So we have STAR for this year, and VOC, but we have graduation and CCMR for the previous year. So you will notice that there are a couple of additions. This on-ramps course got added, and we do have on-ramps physics and chemistry, which next year's graduates it will begin to count for, because we didn't have it for the 2018 graduates. Also, I want to point out that the 2019 school year is the last year that our students will earn this half a point for a CTE coherent sequence. Next year, that will go away, and all we will earn a point for is industry-based certifications or level 1 or level 2 certificates. The second domain, which is school progress, is also broken down into 2 parts, Part A and Part B. Part A is academic growth for reading and math only. In the past, this was measured by students' years' worth of growth over the previous grade. But the new system decides whether we get 0, a half a point, or a full point based upon whether they passed the test last year and how much growth they made. So it's a whole big matrix to decide how many points we get for a student. Part B, Part B is the relative performance, and it's calculated by graphing a district's economic disadvantaged student percentage. That's the x-axis, sorry. And then they against the overall STAR percentage approaches. The state conducts, and I'm sorry to even have to say this, but a quadratic regression, which is curved lines instead of straight lines, and then plots. Anyone in the green got an A, blues B, C, D, and F. And here's just an example based on your economic disadvantage percentage and then your STAR. So that gives you your relative performance. Again, school progress is the better of Part A or Part B. Closing the gaps. Finally, the last domain looks at student performances in up to 13 different student groups and up to 6 different components. Grade level performance, academic growth, English language proficiency, and student achievement. High schools also have added in graduation and CCMR. So just to give you an example, if you looked at the components for this closing the gaps, remember this is the federal accountability system. Elementary and middle schools have a total of 71 targets they need to meet, while high schools and districts have 54 targets. So once the score is calculated, then there's a conversion factor to put it into more easily understandable number, like a 0 to 100 point A, B, C, D, A, F, D, F. And so then you get your A to F rating. Got it? Okay. All right. So here are the results. For the state of Texas, I'm just going to give you 2 quick slides about overview for Texas. There were about 25% or 301 districts who earned A, and about 56% or 677 districts labeled a B. You can also see comparing last year, this is this year, this is last year, there was an increase in the number of B campuses and less CDs and Fs. However, I need to caution you, last year we had a Hurricane Harvey exclusion, which 83 districts were not rated or they could automatically get an A. So that's a great result. At campus statewide information, there were about 19.8% campuses, or 1,750, that were in A, and about 37%, or 3,276, that were identified as B. There was a slight increase from A's and B's from last year to this year, and a decrease in the amount of C's, with D's and F's being about the same. Okay, here we go. Floresville ISD received a B rating with an overall score of 87, up from 84 last year. FISD also received a B score in each of the subdomains. Our highest score was an 89 in school progress. North Elementary received an overall score of 79, just one more point to get to a B. So they received a C rating. Their highest score was in both school progress and closing the gaps with a score of 79, so they were super close. South Elementary received an overall score of 73, which was a C rating. Their highest score was a 74 in the school progress domain. Floresville Middle School received an overall score of 76, which was a C rating. Their highest score was 79, earned in both student achievement and school progress. Again, 79. Floresville High School had an overall score of 83 with a B rating. Remember, the rating for high school includes that graduation and college career military readiness. The highest score for Floresville High School was an 86 in the student achievement domain. And Floresville High School also earned a distinction in the area of academic achievement and science. Distinctions are earned when the campus is in the top quarter of performance when compared to similar campuses across the state. Much thanks to Mrs. Blows and Mrs. Sertucci. Okay, so that's the ratings. Now, what does the accountability system mean? The top part of this identifies the supports that are necessary for state accountability. Campuses basically receiving a D or an F. We do not have any campuses that trigger state accountability. Yay! For federal accountability, campuses can be identified in various levels of support, and that's this bottom part right here. It's kind of most intense to least intense, except for the priority schools, with additional targeted supports being a campus that missed one or more. Remember those 54 or 71 targets? One or more of those triggers an additional targeted support. And in fact, they think basically about half of the campuses in the state of Texas got triggered, which explains what our response is to this. So Floresville South Elementary has been identified as an additional targeted support campus, and Floresville High School has been identified as a targeted support campus. Last year, they both got triggered for our performance for our English learner population. This year, it was SPED. So these campuses will conduct a root cause analysis and create a targeted improvement plan to improve the performance, specifically looking at those special education students. There is no funding tied to this to help us, or monitoring unless TEA were to ask us to upload documentation. Some of the other more intensive interventions require uploads. So we have already provided training at the August staff development for all of our secondary teachers to address the needs of struggling students and special education students. So we were aware that that was probably coming. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have about the accountability report.
You explain it.
Sure, do I have a time limit?
You explain it so much better by verbalizing it rather than reading it in that packet. That helps me understand it a lot better.
Well, good. I do work, I am reading, but I'll work on that.
But it explains it much more clearly.
It is a little complicated. To say the least.
Still, the B rating is good.
Yeah. And the district is up from 84 to 87. That is cause for celebration. Although I don't know that we're celebrating accountability systems.
Well, and it's hard to visualize. Like, we know A to F the way when we were in school, and A was amazing, and and this system, because it takes so many different variables and then disaggregates data in so many different ways, it's hard to really pinpoint how, it's just hard to explain. It's hard to, so the average parent, they're not going to understand the rating system. In my eyes, a B is outstanding for our district, and I'm very proud of our teachers and students who are achieving that for the high school level.
Any questions?
So is the overall average, the 87% up from the
So the district and the high school get rated differently than the elementary and middle. So,
Because of the other two components, right? The CMR and
yes,
graduation
yeah,
rate.
CCMR. I'm going to take you back to that graphic that Sherry Hendrick created for you. So the district and the high school has this CCMR and graduation rate added in. So it's not a true average. It is not a true average because the elementaries and middle school don't have that. Does that make sense? And they don't look at an average, they just dump all the kids in.
So we have more of a high school and graduation.
Which, we want our kids to graduate, we want them to be college, career, military ready. That's important, which is why we're excited that's in the accountability system for the high school. It's just there's nothing like that for elementary and middle
It's
school.
only average numbers when we're coming out, but that's why.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you can't average the scores. It doesn't work that way. Sorry. I'll be glad to share a spreadsheet with you if you want.
You're doing a great job.
As the president, I predicted for us. I was pretty close within a few points, trying to predict it with all the data that we had.
Thank you.
Okay. Stay there. Consider and take possible action to approve the 2019 to 2020 District Improvement Plan.
Good evening again. Tonight, I will present for the board's approval the goals and performance objectives for the 2019-20 District Improvement Plan for DIP. Now, included in your packet is the comprehensive District Improvement Plan that is 80-something pages, but I'm going to condense it down for you tonight. How's that? So you have the complete plan in your packet as well as this presentation. I do want to point out that in an effort to streamline monitoring of both the District Improvement Plan and the Strategic Plan, we have incorporated year one of our actions from the Strategic Plan into the District Improvement Plan. I'm going to show you that as we go along. There are, however, the board's already approved the Strategic Plan, but there are parts of the District Improvement Plan that are required by statute, and so those have been added. For example, you'll notice at the very end of that long packet, there's a migrant student plan that is required by statute that is included in our District Improvement Plan. So that's just an example of some of those. During the 18-19 school year, the district leadership team evaluated data from 8 different areas of the district in a comprehensive needs assessment during their meetings each month. And on May 16th, the district leadership team was presented the draft District Improvement Plan for input. And then on May the 29th, our District Education Improvement Committee, otherwise known as our DEIC, was provided the opportunity for input. So the goals and objectives of that plan is what's being presented to you tonight, but I'll make reference to some of the strategies as well. This is our strategic plan overview that summarizes the strategic plan approved by the board. The goals from the strategic plan are the goals for the District Improvement Plan. So you should see that, you should be able to recognize that. The strategies and tactics are some of the performance objectives, and finally the specific action steps for only 2019-20 are included as strategies in the 2019-20 DIP. There are more strategies as we go through our strategic plan that will be added to next year's DIP. So here we go. Goal 1 is that each student will maximize their potential. Objective 1 and Objective 2 both have preface language of the strategic plan strategy that we will cultivate the social and emotional learning in each learner, intelligence in each learner. Objective 1 is one of the tactics of the strategic plan that all staff will receive ongoing professional development to be able to provide social and emotional support for students. We've already had training on restorative practices and capturing kids' hearts at the elementary level as part of the strategies for this objective. I've also indicated on here when an objective is coming straight from the strategic plan, just to kind of help us know, which if it doesn't say that, then it's another item. Objective 2 is by 2021 that we create and implement a comprehensive social and emotional plan for all content areas and grade levels. This objective is also a tactic in the strategic plan. Although the completion of this objective is not until 2021, there are some steps we're following for this year to get there. such as creating more student organizations and clubs, as well as a mentoring program. Objective 3 of Goal 1 is not directly related to the strategic plan, so that's why you don't see any parentheses on there. It is to ensure students receive adequate intervention and enrichment to achieve at high levels. So we will continue with our plan to implement a response to intervention system to address students who are struggling. Our universal screener that we are administering to K through 9th grade in reading and math provides data for us in that effort. And this year we plan to identify some intervention resources for our students struggling in math and reading, as well as to continue to support our gifted, talented students, special education, and English learners. Goal 2 is that each student will be a lifelong learner prepared for their future. Objective 1, 2, and 3 has preface language about the strategy will design innovative learning environments. Specifically, Objective 1 is that by 2021, we are creating and utilizing shared collaborative spaces. And the high school has already begun that process and I think started using it, but each campus is working on that as we speak. Objective 2 is for teachers to implement student-centered instructional models by the year 2022. This is a massive goal for us. And so our strategy this year is to just research and identify what some models are, and then next year we start talking about piloting. We are also going to continue with our balanced literacy focus on reading and writing. And then Objective 3, by 2022, every student and teacher will have access to and utilize innovative technologies. Our plan for this year is to develop standards for each of those learning environments and continue to provide training on digital learning integration. Objective 4 is to increase the number of students who are grade level ready above the state average. We are focusing on providing support this year in our English and Spanish language arts, I think as Dr. Galloway already discussed, with a focus on writing, and also continue with our professional learning communities where they are learning about different things to help our students. Objective 5 is to increase the number of students meeting that college, career, and military readiness. We did grow in those areas this year. The increase in dual credit offerings will definitely support this objective. In addition, we received a Perkins Reserve grant of $30,000, which will provide support for teachers and professional development to help our students achieve some of those certifications. Goal 3 is that each student will be a contributing member of the global society. Objective 1 and Objective 2 have preface language of the strategic plan that we will ensure each student has opportunities to explore their personal interests and passions. Objective 1 is that by 2020, a strengths mindset is incorporated into the culture of the district. And this year we're working on an implementation timeline for that. Objective 2 is that students will identify and participate in service learning opportunities. A student interest survey and training on service learning options are strategies we're going to use this year to accomplish that objective. Objective 3 is that all students will build and update a digital portfolio reflecting their interests, passions, and purposes. And so this year the strategies are to research and to identify a digital platform that we can use. Goal 4 is that FISD will strive to build strong relationships with stakeholders. Objective 1 is to increase the retention rate of staff, and the district and the board has already made great progress in this when we conducted a TASB salary survey and made adjustments to our salary schedule with pay increases. Objective 2 is to increase opportunities for stakeholder input. Some of those strategies include a discipline committee to provide input to discipline processes in the district and the use of various surveys to collect input. Objective 3 is to create a district-wide plan for community involvement. The creation of a marketing and communications plan, as well as increased opportunities for community engagement, are some of those strategies. Objective 4 is to ensure that opportunities are available for ongoing professional development for our staff. We are seeking staff input for our training needs and providing training to our district leadership team as part of those strategies. Finally, Goal 5 is that FISD will exercise fiscal responsibility. The objective this year is to create a plan for ensuring fiscal responsibilities, and the strategies this year include a TASB facilities assessment and then working with our district growth and planning committee to make recommendations. The next steps will be next month, in September, to present the campus improvement plans to the board for approval. And then once the board has approved our district improvement plan, we will present this to our district education improvement committee to make sure that I'll be glad to answer questions that you may have.
I do have a question. Back on goal 1,
Yes, sir.
objective 1 or 2,
Yes, sir.
let's say 2.
Okay.
What's a content area?
Math, science, social studies.
So how do we, what is comprehensive social and emotional plan? What does that mean?
So we're meeting the social emotional needs of all of our students, wherever they are, whatever grade level, whichever content group.
For math?
Well,
I'm trying to tie that to math, reading, and writing, is
Mhm.
what I'm trying to tie the social and emotional piece of that to. I don't know what that even means.
I think a piece of that, Mr. Bippard, is that it's not just your, maybe your homeroom teachers or your core teachers that are responsible for nurturing the social emotional development of our students. It's all of the teachers. So when they say all contents, that could be electives, that could be your PE teacher. So it's not just your
Okay.
classroom teacher.
See, I was taking that as the reading teacher,
Yeah.
specifically trying to, or the math.
No, it's just
Okay.
trying to really include everybody.
Regardless of who they are.
All kinds of, okay. That clarifies that.
I have a question for goal 3. Do we have a program in place for our students like Zello or Career, well, it was Career Cruising and now it's Zello? Is there a program in place that our students start to actually take those interest surveys and then find their path, so that way when they get to choosing their path at the high school level, they have some better guidance?
In 8th grade, they do a career interest survey. Somebody help me remember what it's called. I can't remember what it's called, but they do a career interest survey in 8th grade. All students take that, and it gives them some information on the pathway. And then our counselors go over for our 8th grade parent night and communication night to map their 4-year plan.
Thank you.
What other questions do you have? So administration recommends the board approve the 2019-20 district improvement plan goals and objectives as presented.
Madam President, I move to accept administration's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Ms. Turner, seconded by Mr. Swoboda. All those in favor? 7-0. Thank you, Dr. Wade. All right, item 7. Consider and take possible action on endorsement of candidates for TASB Board of Directors with Dr. Bates.
Yes, so I want to start off by pointing out that in the background information, I inadvertently included some information from the last time that Mr. Westbrook was running for this position. So this year, there is one position available at Region 20. It is in position D, which our board is eligible to recommend someone for that position. Mr. Westbrook has been a member of the TASB committee since 2016, and if y'all will think back, he actually came to a meeting and spoke to you at that time. Just a little bit about him. He's been on the Floresville Universal City ISD Board of Trustees since 2011, and he's currently serving as their board president. He is a fire chief for the San Antonio Fire Department. He has children in the public school system at Floresville, and he is very interested in continuing in this capacity. So he was elected to a 3-year term in 2016, and he is up for re-election again at this time.
So the way that board works is I'm a delegate to the board, or to the Region 20 board. Every school district has the opportunity for somebody to go, and then out of that, there's 4 voting delegates at the state deal, which is above us, at the D spot. I guess he's one of those 4 deals, and it's broken up into areas within Region 20.
So are there any questions about Mr. Westbrook, or? If not, administration recommends the board endorse Robert Westbrook for position D on the TASB Board of Directors.
Madam President, I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Bippert and seconded by Mr. Muth. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, item number 8. Ms. Engel, consider and take possible action to approve the ordinance adopting the tax rate for 2019 to 2020.
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Bays. Every year, the board is required to adopt the tax rate. This year, the 2019 tax rate is required to be adopted by the board by September 30th, 2019. The tax rate proposed for this year is $1.36.50, which is down 11 cents from last year. The last year rate of $1.44.50. As you'll recall from our budget workshops, the state, as a result of House Bill 3, is requiring compression of the tax rate, of the M&O tax rate. So the board is proposing an M&O tax rate of 97 cents and an INS tax rate of 36.5 cents for a total tax rate of $1.33.5.
Dollar what, 33?
$1.33.5.
Everybody should be happy.
No word.
Yes. Any questions? Really? Any questions?
There are no questions, but administration recommends the board approve the resolution setting the tax rate for the 2019 tax year.
Madam President, I move to accept the administration's recommendations for the 1.3345 tax rate.
Second, Madam President.
Motion made by Mr. Bippert, seconded by Mr. Orth. All those in favor? 7 vote. Thank you. All right, and consider and take possible action to approve the resolution on review of local policy CDA. Ms. Engel.
Each year, the board is required to review the investment policy, which is CPA local, and be notified of any changes that have been recommended. This document is approved by a resolution of the board. This year, the district is not recommending any changes to the current policy as it protects the safety of principal as well as liquidity of the funds. The only changes that we are recommending is a change in designated investment officers to the Director of Finance and the Business Office Supervisor, which was previously the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance, Business and Operations, and the Business Manager.
Any questions?
If no questions, the administration recommends the board approve the resolution on the review of the investment policy.
Madam President, I move to accept the administration's recommendations.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Swoboda and seconded by Ms. Pena. All those in favor? 7 vote. Okay, thank you, Ms. Engel.
Thank you.
Item 10, Mr. Schroeder. Consider and take possible action to approve calling the November 5, 2019 general school board election.
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, Superintendent of Schools. Yes, I'm here, up here, wanted to talk to you a little bit about the school board election. On November 5th, 2019, the trusteeships of Mr. Bippert, District 2, and Angela Morales-Turner, District 6 will be expiring. In accordance with state laws and local policies, a trustee election is to be held in November of 2019. The district will be holding a joint election with the county of Wilson, which is a requirement for school districts. We'll be contracting with the county elections administrator to conduct the election. There will be 6 elections total, so know that. We will be splitting the cost. You kind of send an attachment so you can look at the contract, and that usually comes 30 days after the election, the contract. Are there any questions? Okay, well, the administration recommends the board approve the order calling the general school board election for November 5th, 2019 as presented.
Madam President, I move to accept administration's recommendation.
Madam President, I'll second that.
Motion made by Mrs. Pena and seconded by Mr. Swoboda. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, item number 11, Mr. Schroeder. Consider and take possible action to approve joint election contract with Wilson County.
Yes, kind of as I stated earlier, state law again requires a school district to hold a joint election with city, county, or other local government entity. In the past, we have joint election with the city since this law was adopted several years ago. This year, the city of Floresville has decided not to hold their election in November. In order to meet the requirements for a joint election, we reached out to the county and the district, and we've agreed, and we must have one polling place on election day, and that place will be the Wilson County Expo and Community Center. That's the commonality. Early voting will be at the Wilson County Annex, and the other polling location will be the SPJST Hall when that time comes. Questions?
Say that again. You said one polling place, but then.
Early voting will be at the Wilson County Annex, and then the two polling locations will be at SPJST Hall and the Showborn.
And the show.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Okay. No questions?
Questions? Okay. Administration recommends approval of joint election agreement with the County of Wilson. Bless you.
Madam President, I move to accept administration's recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mrs. Pena and seconded by Mr. Muth. All those in favor? 7-0, thank you. Item 12, consider and take possible action to approve the extension of the property insurance with Property Casualty Alliance of Texas.
Yes, as most of you will recall, we had a meeting. I invited Frank Krusky to come speak about insurance and so forth. And that's basically the Property Casualty Alliance of Texas. What that is, it's a bunch of school districts coming together, and it's the largest in the United States, and they create a pool. The district purchases property, casual, general liability, educators' legal liability, and auto through PCAT. We have been offered through Mr. Pruski a 3-year renewal proposal that will go through the 21-22 school year at a premium of $423,701. Understand this is an increase from the year prior that was at $357,499. So we asked the question as to why. Current nationwide claims, projected increases in the insurance. Spoke to you about the buy down to reduce the deductible on the wind and hail from $250,000 to $100,000. Makes perfect sense. And the reinsurance market. So it is recommended that the district extend its current property insurance coverage with PCAT through the 21-22 school year. They give us a lot of little perks too, like Stay Alert, Edwards Risk compensation benefits, the safety goggles, the steel toe boots, that type of stuff. When we have less claims, we get more perks. Questions?
So that's gonna be $450K plus times 3?
423,701 times 3, yes, sir.
Okay.
And we're budgeted for that.
Yeah.
They're the ones that handled the tornado for us.
Yes. Did a fabulous job, yes, ma'am.
Any questions? Any other questions?
Okay. Administration recommends to approve the district property and liability insurance through the 21-22 school year.
Madam President, I move to accept administration recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Swoboda and seconded by Mr. Orth. All those in favor? Okay. Item 13, consider and take possible action for approval of purchase of replacement HVAC units.
Yes, ma'am. As some of you know, many of the HVAC units in place throughout our district that consist of the Ag Building, Tiger's Den, the High School 800 Building, Theater Arts, and South Elementary have experienced numerous HVAC repairs over the past several years. And in my research and my investigation and talking with maintenance, we have to decide when is it no longer cost effective to repair opposed to having a plan moving forward with purchasing new HVAC units. All of these HVAC units in these buildings are right at 16, 19 years, if not older, and they require the phased out R22. That's a Freon coolant, a refrigerant that we can still get, but it is pretty steep in price. So with that said, I'm proposing to replace these units with newer energy efficient units you guys kind of know, the older units push more amps, more electricity, more payments coming out of FISD. More energy efficient units, less amps, less electricity, a less bill. Another pro to this is, you guys just approved the Zenergy proposal, and that is no way tied to Zenergy, or will have an effect on the Zenergy analysis, because Zenergy installs the smart controls, the motherboards, the brains behind it, the software, so to speak, not the HVAC units itself. So we got a total rough cost estimate, and that was from Airstream, who pretty much does a lot of our stuff, and it's about $1,000 a ton is kind of what they look at. We have a combination of HVAC units and chillers, and there's a little difference. One is regulated air temperature by water, the other one is air. Recently I just purchased a new unit for my house, and it was a little over $3,000, and it was a 3-ton. So they're pretty close. Mr. Kelly is getting some RFQs from Train, and I think Rude is the other one, and so you know that. But from what we got this, it was who usually conducts business with us, and that was through Airstream. Questions? I just think we're on the right track. We got to move forward with making it comfortable for our staff.
What's the dollar figure for all of them?
254,000.
But it will go out for bid.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, that's what we're.
Is that gonna be compatible with that software, you doing the updates and stuff, or how's that gonna work?
This is just the actual units itself, because
Would they be able to control?
So they're non-computer controlled, they're
That's
standalone
correct.
units?
yes, we have no rooftop. They're all ground. They have absolutely zero rooftop. Zenergy will be coming and putting smart boards in the auditorium, here at Central Office, and one other place, Mr. Crowley, is Theater Arts. And we have a small problem here we're trying to get fixed as well, but it's called the motherboard here at Central Office. And so we have a plan for that moving forward too.
But all those energies will talk to this stuff, equipment.
Yes.
Oh, it will, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All those energy will.
You know, back when Uncle Pillar was here, we talked about the 8 and 900. We were cannibalizing units and just trying to keep those things going. That's been 5 years ago.
These things have been good.
I don't know how many years ago, but you know, we've limped at least that 800 and 900 wing or whatever along that long. So
Now, I will tell you, Mr. Cowley he's doing a preventative maintenance program that I don't think we've ever had in the past. These units have been gutted. Some of you that, this is your business and this is your wheelhouse, so to speak. Some of these parts are very difficult to find or very steep in price. And so,
Well, we put Band-Aids long enough, and these are our students that we're talking about, and so they need to have a safe learning environment.
well, we got to do something, yes, ma'am. And I think it's an effective plan, and we'll start coming up with a strategic plan. Hopefully, the money we save from Zenergy over the cost of a year, we will be putting that money into a line item where we have some money to continue to.
So what's the turnaround on this?
Probably, if it's approved, I would say a good month and a half. Would you say that's about right, Mr. Cowley?
We're looking at about
With
26
labor and-
units, so about a month and a half, yes.
Okay. Yes, sir. Questions?
So the majority of the units that we're talking about are still running, they're just not, you're falling apart, right? So the
Yes, sir.
schools are still somewhat
Yes,
comfortable.
whether it's a contactor, whether it's the compressor, whether it's the fan. Now, the good part is, in looking at the air handlers, that's still in pretty good shape. We've got a few dampers that, aren't functioning as good as they can be, but right now, the HVAC, the meat is what we're trying to fix. 800 wing is pretty much our largest. I think there's 22 to 25 units there alone, just an 800 wing. And so if we had to prioritize, that's what I would say. The other big concern is the field house, because of our athletes coming out of the heat at 100, 102 degrees sometimes, and they need a place to cool down. In the event that one of them kind of has heat exhaustion and so forth. questions. Administration recommends approval of purchasing new HVAC units to be installed at Ag Building, Tiger's Den, High School 800 Building, Theater Arts Building, and South Elementary.
Madam President, I move to accept administration's recommendations on our new HVAC system.
And I'll second it.
Thank you.
Motion made by Mr. Bippert, seconded by myself. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, Mr. Schroeder, consider and take possible action for approval of contract with the Baptist Children Family Services for the 2019 to 20 Head Start program.
Yes, we continue to grow. This is something we have been doing for a couple of years now, but this contract will extend the partnership with BCFS and FISD for the Head Start program for this upcoming school year. Last year we had 2 classes, I believe, at Floresville North and Floresville South. Well, this year we'll have 3 Head Start classes. So we are growing in number, and we'll be serving approximately 120 students, and I think last year you may tell me about 90 or somewhere around there. So we're increasing, which is a good thing. Head Start rooms will serve pre-K students ages 3 and 4. All pre-K classes will use the same curriculum and will operate similarly to the regular FISD pre-classes. And again, this contract is for this school year only.
We're having those on both campuses.
Yes, north and south. The good thing is, it kind of helps us because they pay for 50% of the salary for each Head Start teacher. And we have to have an aide in there, and they pay 100% of the Head Start salary for an aide. So that's a win-win for us.
Sure.
Questions?
Any questions?
Okay, administration recommends the board approve the contract with Baptist Church Family Services for the 2019-2020 Head Start program.
Madam President, I move to accept administration's recommendation.
Madam President, I'll second that.
He said it first.
That's fine.
Oh dear.
It's okay.
Motion made by Mrs. Pena and seconded by Mr. Muth. All those in favor? 7-0. Thank you. Meeting adjourned 7:32.
Adjourned? Or closed session?
Closed session. Excuse me.
I'm fine with adjourned.